I'm just going to throw things out there like your child turns out to be homosexual or you're something like that. I'm not saying that's
Mm,
what or that would be a good or bad thing, but I'm just
yeah.
saying something where if you think one way and you think this is kind of what I believe or think is good or whatever, and your kid is on the other side of that, how do you still love, support, or what do you think you're going to do in some of those situations?
So that's a great deep question. Two things come to mind is one, my middle daughter is our wild spirit that is just like ball of energy. It's like a spinning dervish, right? Just
I
spinning
know
around. If there's
I've
like a
seen
knife somewhere,
families and
she's gonna
I know who
right,
you're talking
right.
about.
Like some people, it's like it's three, maybe two, maybe not. Three kids, definitely one of them. Or like find a glass of water, just wherever it is, knocks it over, kicks it, just always, yeah, it's wild. So, and it's just like it's a lot to handle. So then there's another one is like that comes, so that's part one of like, right, it's almost uncontrollable. And so we're just trying to put like bumpers, right, to contain it. Because if we're just
Yeah.
like, no, no, and it's just like, it doesn't matter. It just cool, immediately squirts you woo out the other side. So of like
Yeah.
controlling the chaos. And the other one comes, a thought that comes to mind is in where a big one is like I posted something on Instagram that everywhere my wife was not happy with exactly where I was like, I remember when my wife tricked me to chemically
I
castrating
remember
my
that
son,
post. I remember that post. I
and
was like,
just fucking kidding. And that, because I saw this stuff coming in. Like my Brecken he's a boy. He's a young man. He's almost 6 feet. He is 6 feet, and he's gonna be a big dude. He's a good like, and he's all fucking boy, dude. That's how he was raised, or not raised. Sorry, that's how he grew up. He was in when we were in San Diego. He was in preschool. Whatever that age is, 5, 6, and he was biting his sandwich into guns and shoot. Like,
yeah.
dude, nothing. I mean, dad was a Marine, but like, man, this is all his thing, man. He is all boy. We've circled around that discussion because Kelly has lots of groups of friends in that more in that realm. And I'm like, listen, if Brecken, my son, if he would have been that age young, where he would have been, I'm in a different body, I'm gay or something like that, I would have been, man, okay, well, I'm gonna love you exactly the same. Right. I'd love for him to, be heterosexual because that's kind of seems simpler and easier, right? For, if you're a dude
Or it's
guy, you be
familiar. Or familiar.
familiar,
Yeah.
right? Just, more not necessarily normal, but just probably an easier path, probably.
Yeah.
But I would have loved him exactly the same. However, I'm going to make the decision of like, hey, well, 18, you want to go do that crazy shit and do all that stuff? Sure. But it's like it's like, I think that was an interesting, good question, but a balance of like, well, shit, what do we do in that situation? Do we make those decisions then? Like, which, like, again, going back to what you said, you study, you learn. What is the best possible decision? Is it giving potentially a 8 or 10-year-old child, a baby, puberty blockers or chemicals that chemically castrate children? There's no long-term studies. You start to look and like, what's the research here? What's the epidemiology behind any of this? Have they done this? Like, and you're like, no, 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 no. And you make decisions from that. How I think about things almost on a daily basis of my operating code is that I operate with love and compassion. And when I meet the Buddha along the road, I will kill him. And if you know what I mean by that, that is like, if you ever meet anybody who's like, I'm a guru, that means they're full of fucking shit. Or like, I'm the Buddha, right? I'm this, I'm the best. I'm like, they're full of shit. And like, I think that's the approach, is the constant striving for, flawless execution. Okay. And I'm far from that, but it's just, and especially with kids, right? Like, again, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to strive for that flawless execution. And I think children offer the most wild, bright stuff and the most
Yeah.
stress, but also the most reward. And of like finding equanimity in those, right. My kids are still young, dude. And right there, you don't know what's going to happen. And it's like, whenever that crazy thing happens, hopefully it does, is that, can you find your balance quick enough and not to react poorly? And that's something that I have to work on every day. And in that, I don't know, that this situation of the transgender is something very unique in our, not necessarily unique, because you go back into the Weimar Republic in Germany and
Yeah.
these things that have transpired, and you're like, I feel like let's hold the line of where we're drawing the line on children.
No, you definitely hit it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it was funny you mentioned that post because that was part of the reason of my question was like, I want to
Yeah,
know like what
yeah,
would you do if things like that happen? Because I feel like that's the one thing as a parent is like you can't expect what's going to happen. You
right.
don't know,
Agree.
you know, and like
So that's like there's a part to that that I think is like nature nurture. Okay, how much is our society changing where an 8-year-old, and again, there's some real, I think, very sad statistics where like 8-year-olds are very, very young or exposed to pornography, you know, that at that age or younger. And so, what do you think? My thought is like, what does that do to that mind? Like, I was
yeah,
like, I don't know, when I first saw something like that, I know I saw a magazine when I was like in probably like middle school and then high school for
yeah,
anything, even, remotely like what it is or what's available to be accessed today. And so I'm thinking, I'm like, all right, did that little person, choose that? That could perfectly be that way, and I'd be fucking good with it, right? Like I can't not love this little guy. Like, let's say, if that was the case, because I feel like that would then be like that'd be the most horrible parent in the world. But it's not. I think it's just protecting them from themselves too, right? Like you gotta
right.
protect them.